Hello, Graham. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, yes.
Very good. I
For
don't
some
know.
reason, I don't know why you can't see me. There you go. Start the video. There we go. You can't. Okay. All right.
Do I need to give you permission to use your video? I think I might.
Yeah, you've stopped me from using it for some reason. There you go. Quite understandable.
Ha! Oh, why does it do this? Make host. I'm just going to make you host, and then you can use your video. All right. Now you should be able to turn the video on.
There we go. There we are. There I am.
Oh. All righty. How was the meditation podcast for you the other day?
It was real fun. I don't know. I don't usually think about things much in advance, and so it's really fun to be asked questions and go, oh, I have no idea. And then it's a bit like the IELTS speaking test. You go, okay, well, I'll just start talking anyway. You start talking, and then things come. Actually, it's actually a very good technique. Everybody's thinking about, I never know what to say in the IELTS speaking test. Well, don't worry, just start speaking. That's what sounds. So.
That's it.
It wasn't meditative, but it did actually. It reminded me of some important things, which was great. Actually, it was very cool. It's always good talking about these things.
I agree. Great conversation topics. Just to let everybody know who's listening in, Graham and I did a podcast yesterday, which will come out very soon, and we talked about meditation practices and how they can be helpful for everything in life, but also helpful for your IELTS test, especially if you're nervous or anxious before your test, and how meditative practices can help.
Maybe we should start the session with a quick 2-minute meditation. Do you think?
If you want to lead one, do you want to lead one?
I'll do it. No, I don't lead meditation. I just close my eyes. That's all you need to do. I actually hate guided meditations. They drive me crazy.
Really?
Just stop talking. How can I meditate?
Just stop talking. Exactly. I've been talking all day, I swear.
Yeah, no, let's not. Let's just get on with it, because I'm sure we've got lots of questions. Right.
All right. So welcome, everybody. My name is Jay, and I'm with Graham, and we're going to answer all of your questions on IELTS. So what we'll do is let's start with speaking. Let's talk about IELTS speaking to start off with. So if you have any questions about IELTS speaking, pop them into the chat. What I'll do, Graham, is I'll sort of field the questions and shoot them across to you, and we'll see how we go. Can I use passive voice in active voice passage? That is cryptic, but I don't think that's got to do with speaking. So let's skip that one. I want to speak with you, sir. We'll skip that one as well. You can.
Thank you, Avadesh.
You can, in fact, with Graham in the speaking mock tests. Okay, let's start with Cherry. How many dead air can we have in every part? I guess Cherry's question is, how much does pausing affect your score?
Well, look, I mean, the first thing to be realistic is that even in our first language, which are usually quite good at speaking, we pause, right? Because, we're thinking. And a short pause of a second or two is completely fine. But of course, don't sit there for 5 or 10 seconds. If you really need time to think, then let the examiner know, all right, that, for example, wow, that's a challenging question. I've never thought about that before. Let me think. Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is, use some language to show that what's happening. And of course, you're also showing that you've got good language and you're keeping the communication going. I think that's probably, for me, the most important thing. The examiner has no idea what's happening if you're going like this. So, speak.
Good. All right. Sam asks, can we look at the cue card in part 2 while we're speaking?
Very good idea. That's what it's there for. Cue card. Cue means a cue is a prompt to suggest what you could talk about next. Definitely, Sam. And of course, if you get to the point where you go, I can't think of anything more to say, then just look down at the cue card and say, now what else could I let me tell you a bit more about why she's my best friend. So use the cue card to help you to continue speaking. Good question.
City's asking about contractions, because We know that when we use contractions, that usually indicates informal speech. So in speaking, can I say I don't, or do I have to say I do not? I can't, or I cannot, etc. Are contractions okay?
Well, they are what we naturally do when we speak, and they also affect the rhythm of your language as well. So don't and do not. Yeah, use contractions. Absolutely. And funnily enough, that came up in the class we've just done on the free whatever class I just did. And yes, use contractions in writing, but only in casual letters. So I thought I'd bring that one up just to remind everybody. But yeah, definitely use contractions. And
So
it helps. Don't you think the rhythm of your language?
Yeah, it's just natural. So Cherry said the examiner took the cue card from him or her after the 1 minute preparation time. That's incorrect, Cherry. So I would make an official complaint.
Yep.
Make an official complaint to your IELTS Centre because your examiner is incorrect there. They should not take your cue card after the 1 minute. That is wrong. Just to remind everybody, we're talking about speaking. That's weird. Talking about speaking. So if you have speaking questions, pop them into the chat. Sam, is it okay to use gesticulations, hand movements while talking? Does body language matter?
Yeah, of course. Body language is a part of our ability to communicate to one human being to another. Definitely. Yeah. Not a problem at all. Don't feel inhibited. If that's what you naturally do, then I think that's fine. Don't you think so, Jay?
Yes, I think it certainly helps me if I need to get an idea out. I do all sorts of crazy stuff. You are not scored, however, on your body language. So even if you do weird body movements, that's cool.
That doesn't
matter. Okay. Vith has a question which is quite odd. Should I act smart in IELTS speaking, in my IELTS speaking test?
Well, I mean, are you saying you're not smart and you have to pretend that you're smart, or not totally sure what you mean there, Vith? Act smart. Just be natural. Just be yourself. I mean, I'm not totally sure what the question means.
It's definitely not an IQ test. They're not measuring your finding out how much you know about X. Just be natural, Vith.
Yeah.
Anna wants to know if we can use words like or phrases like "you should know." Sure. I mean, natural sounding phrases like that, as far as I'm concerned, or "you should know" is an interesting one. But yeah, little phrases like that are completely fine. Just natural. There's nothing. What the IELTS speaking test is doing is basically taking a sample of your natural speech, and then they're just going to measure it. So you don't have to do anything different. The only thing I would do differently in your IELTS speaking is just show off a little bit. Just amp it up a little bit and use some vocabulary that you might not use with, in some circumstances. That's all. Just show off a little bit. Mimi, is it better to go to the 2 minutes in the speaking part 2 and just let the examiner just stop you, or is that not good?
So you're saying, so basically to surpass the 2 minutes. Well, the examiner says before you start speaking in part 2, and I'll tell you when your time is up. So basically, that's what's going to happen. You keep talking and the examiner says, thank you. Can I have the task card back, please? Oh, and your paper and pencil. So just keep talking until the examiner tells you to stop.
Yeah, it's not a problem if they tell you to stop. You've done nothing wrong. Mukesh, in speaking, if I come across a word which I don't know, like aquatic animal, then what should I do? Like, let's say in the part 3 discussion, the examiner says, okay, Mukesh, can you tell me, what do you think about aquatic animals? And Mukesh doesn't know what aquatic means. What should Mukesh do?
Well, Mukesh, I mean, if you don't understand somebody, then usually what one does is you ask them to explain what they mean, which you do politely. And you can say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by aquatic. Can you explain that, please? But having said that, it's very rare because the test questions are very carefully designed to make the language available to pretty much everybody. And remember that in part 3, the examiner has 3 sets of questions to ask you. The first is the easier or easiest set. The second is more difficult. The last set is given to candidates who, in the examiner's estimation, are 7+. And there may be more difficult vocabulary there, but then you should be able to understand it because you're a better candidate. So, short answer, just politely ask for it to be explained. And of course, if you didn't hear something, and these days taking a test with a mask on and all that kind of stuff, you know, it's pretty awful. If you didn't hear something, just say, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it, please?
Anshul says that when Anshul took the test, the examiner was interrupting part one and not letting Anshul complete. I'm trying to say not say he or her, his or her sentences. That's probably because you're speaking for a little bit too long. So Graeme, in part one, when you say, do you like the rain, or those little questions, how long should the candidate speak for in part one?
Well, for me, Jay, it's not so much about how long you should speak for, it's about how well you develop your answer.
Good on.
All right. So just stick to the answer. If it's about the rain, say what you think, explain why, and tell a little story. That's all you need to do. So just keep it very simple. We get lots of people who just start one idea and then another idea and then another idea, then another, and so on. Yeah, exactly.
Graeme, do you like the rain?
I love it.
That's not
you want me to give an answer? Why do I love it? I love it because I live in a hot climate and the rain cools me down. For example, I was on the beach the other day and I was feeling really sweaty, and then I saw these black clouds coming out. I thought, oh, it's going to rain, and it rained, and it was delicious.
Perfect.
Next question,
Vith, in part 3, should I be very philosophical?
No, I mean, just again, we've talked about being natural. Just answer the question in the best way you can. Use your experience. Tell stories, you know, talk about your own life, country, whatever it is. Not personally, of course, in part 3. But I'm not quite sure what you mean by philosophical, but why not?
There's a sort of, yeah, exactly. I think it's like, you know, the depth of the question, the answers you give, you can draw on academic sources or draw on a little bit deeper and more interesting.
Yes, exactly. You can quote Ramana Maharshi if you like. That would be fine.
Absolutely. All right. Do you see any questions in here? Evie's got a good one. How do you handle questions about a topic which you're not really familiar with? For instance, spaceships or outer space. I suspect this would happen in part 3.
Yes. Well, but the first thing is that these topics are designed to be as accessible to as many people as possible. But of course, sometimes you do get something you don't know much about. So the first thing to do is be honest, right? Just say, well, actually, I don't really know much about this. But you've got to say something, though, all right? So just give the best answer you can, but be honest, because it's all part of just communicating what's going on for you. And yeah, the examiner may then just, after you've given a short answer, just say, well, I'll ask you another question. That's something the examiner sometimes might do when they see you're struggling. But
right. Okay, let's switch gears now. We've talked about speaking. I think we've sort of exhausted the questions there. So let's talk about everybody's favorite topic. Let's talk about writing, because we've got a good one from Gurpreet there.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions about writing, which I'm sure you do, please pop them into the chat now. Of course, I'm neglecting all the people on YouTube. I know you're out there watching this, and that's good. But if you do want your answers questioned, come across to e2language.com and actually sign up for these live classes. Then you actually get to interact with Graeme and me. Okay. So Gurpreet's question is, in academic writing task 2, the essay, is it the same as it is in general? Is it the same sort of thing, or is it vastly different? What's the go there?
It's not vastly different, but the topics, all right, are of a more, I mean, you know, it sounds very vague, but of a more academic nature, all right? Just like the reading, the texts are of a more academic nature. So that basically is all one can say, really. A general training task 2 topic should be accessible to everybody, because it's the test is about testing your ability to use language in everyday situations. Whereas the academic test is testing your language. Maybe you need to use it in study, university, tertiary education, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Ramakrishna asks, should we write or include idioms in our academic writing?
How many times do we get this question? That's a great question, because the problem is what do we mean by idioms, all right? Once in a blue moon, is this what you're thinking about as an idiom? Or are we talking about idiomatic language, all right? I mean, Jay's into surfing, right, Jay? That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jay's into surfing. That's idiomatic language. It's a phrasal verb. So I don't really know how to answer that simply. Any ideas?
Well, I think there's a distinction between like proverbs and idioms. If you're talking about two birds in the hand is worth more than one in the bush, something like that, please don't put that in your academic essay or in your general essay. That's the type of idiom that you should not include. But idiomatic language, like even collocations could be called idiomatic language, like taking responsibility, or I can never think of collocations, even though I use them all the time. But in short, don't include proverb type language in your essays, please don't.
Right. And the other thing, of course, is to think about is formality, informality, because quite a lot of idiomatic language is actually quite informal. A lot of phrasal verbs, for example, all right? Don't get into this, all right? You'll get into trouble. I wouldn't use that kind of language in an academic essay. So difference of tone as well.
Yeah.
It's a challenging one, though. It's very hard to give direct and easy guidelines on. Good question.
Vith, should I use a mixture of active and passive voice? And I'm going to add some here. Should I also use a mixture of different verb tenses? And should I really be focusing on trying to insert grammar into my essay? Or, leading question, Graeme, should I be leading with good ideas and letting the grammar do the work to express my ideas?
Well, I mean, you've kind of led me there a bit there. Well, yes. Remember, the primary thing you're trying to do is to communicate your ideas clearly, and your vocabulary, your sentence structures, your organization, everything should be in service of that. Correct?
Yes. It's about clarity, isn't it? And sometimes, in order to be clear, you may have to use a passive sentence. In order to be clear, you may have to use a present perfect verb tense or a conditional sentence, but it's all about communication and clarity of your ideas. Grammar and the vocab just is in service of those ideas. Yes, nicely said. I like that. Okay. Have you got any there?
We've got this from Jazzy or Jishuri. I submitted my writing first time as mark 7, second time 5.5 from different teachers. Was it because more study I going worse, or different teacher may mark a little different? I'm so stressed now. Jazzy, look, I would suggest that when you've had a fair amount of feedback on your writing, it would be a good idea to take a tutorial so that somebody can work with you in detail on what you're doing. All right? Because clearly you're getting some feedback, but it's not at this stage helping you very much. In fact, if you're more stressed afterwards and you're not informed about what to do differently, then that would be my response there.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, these tutorials, 45 minutes one-on-one, they're very, very helpful. Yes. Nirothipan has a question about a YouTube video that I made a long time ago. Nirothipan, all of the methods lessons on e2language.com are the most up-to-date ones. Okay, so some of the ones on YouTube are a bit outdated, a bit old. So if you do want access to all of the new up-to-date ones, check out e2language.com. Okay, so here's a question from Sam about general writing task 1, the letter. So if you're taking general writing general test, the first task is to write a letter, and it's about formality and the opening line. Do I write respected sir or madam or dear sir or hello Tom? What should I write there?
Well, not hello Tom. Look, this comes up a lot with respected and your revered company and whatever, okay? This is not language we use generally in English. And I think it's often a translation from a formal way of addressing in your own language. Just keep it very simple. Learn the way of addressing, the way of signing off. All right, just learn a simple way of doing it, which is suitable for the formality of the letter, and put your efforts into the body paragraphs.
Yeah, that's right. There's formulaic ways to do this. And dear sir, madam, or dear Mr. Smith, they might give you the name. That's how you do it. Yeah, quite interesting, isn't it? So a lot of those sorts of your revered company come from somebody's first language. Like in Indonesian, they have bapak yang terhormat, which means respected sirs. You know, that's the translation in English. But and I do it as a bit of a joke when I speak to Indonesian people. Like if I just see some Indonesian friends in the street, I'm like, respected sirs, you know. But if I'm writing a letter in English, I would not use respected sirs. That sounds a bit strange.
Okay, what else we got? So we've got a question from Mukesh about, and this came up quite a lot in the class I've just taken, the review of the week, whether to take, my handwriting is bad, which is best, handwritten or computer, pros and cons. Now, I think the simple thing, for me, if I was taking it, I would always take the computer-based test for writing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the con, all right, is I'm a terrible typist. I make lots of errors and so on. Well, then think about it. But it's so much easier to edit your work on the computer. But you've also got to think about, am I prepared to do the listening on a computer, and so on. So it's a difficult question, but for writing, it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. Me too. I've taken both, taken paper-based and computer-based IELTS tests, and the computer-based for me is superior, especially for the writing. It's just because I can type so quickly, and then also the ability to edit a paragraph, or you look at a sentence and think, well, I can add a little clause there. I'm going to move that just to click, click, bang, 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 bang. Whereas with a pen and paper, it's just a mess. So big plus for writing on the computer.
Yeah, and on that paper-based thing, of course, is that with the writing, write on every other line, so that if you need to do any editing, you can actually write it in the space that you've left above the change you're making or something like that. And that makes it much easier for the examiner to see what you want them to read.
Good one. Just got a question on YouTube Live, which is a good one, which is, do inquiry on results work? I've got a bit of experience with this, having sent back my writing to the IELTS people for remarking. I think I did it 3 times. And each time they increased my score by either half a band score or 1 full band score. Now, the reason why I sent it back was because I left the exam thinking I just wrote a great essay and my task 1 was also totally on point. And then I got my results. One of them was 7.5 and I thought, what? No, that's not right. So I sent it back and they would change it to 8.5. In fact, that happened twice. So my recommendation to you is, if you really do feel like you did a good job and you've already gotten feedback from us and we're like, yep, you're doing well, you're on track, and then you go and get a poor result, everything else is good, I would send it back. It's worth the gamble. It is a gamble though, because you can lose money.
Yeah. Vast majority of students who contact me and I say, yes, do it, they get their mark goes up. I've only had 1 in the last year that didn't, and everybody else did.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Nisha, why don't you guys be the examiners? Many students would get their desired bands. Yes. Well, we can't tell you. That'd be nice. So Ranjan wants to know what band scores I got when I took my IELTS test. So I got for reading each time, took it 5 times. I either got 8.5 or 9. I think one or two of them I got 8.5, which means I screwed up a few of the questions. Listening was the same, 8.5 or 9. Speaking, I got 9s. Writing fluctuated from, I think from 8. One of them was 7. I think my first one was 7.5. That was a disaster. But I learned a lot from the first one. And then it went up to 8.5. But I couldn't get any higher than 8.5, actually. In fact, I've only ever seen one person get a 9 for IELTS writing in my entire life. One. I've seen, I don't know, spoken to 10,000 students. So there you go.
No comment. But yeah.
Exactly. Nisha, I have my exam tomorrow. What should I do today? Well, I reckon, Nisha, by this stage, there's not much else you can do. So I would relax. I would chill out. I'd go for a walk. I would, do something that you enjoy doing. Watch a movie, take your mind off it. What about you, Graeme? What would you do the day before your test?
I was going to say exactly, do as little as possible. The only thing I might say is, hang out with somebody who speaks English and speak English all the time, but, in a very relaxed kind of way, but if you can. That's
right. Yeah, there's not much you can do at this stage now, so you may as well enjoy yourself. All right, we're sort of running out of questions there. Okay, here's a question. This is back on speaking. So if you have any questions now on listening or reading or any other questions, just pop them into the chat. Let me just double back here and talk about speaking with Inamasit, which is, if our cue card in speaking part 2 asks us to talk about art, does that mean we just have to talk about drawings and paintings, or does that mean we can talk about music, dance, poetry, etc.?
Well, it's entirely up to you, but just make sure that you're clear, all right? That you might say something like, well, no, you've asked me to talk about art, and the kind of art that I'd like to talk about is rap music. It's a great form of art, and let me explain, and so on. So just be clear about what you're saying. Don't worry about it. To be honest, if you're talking about part 2 here, as long as you speak on the topic, you've got a lot of, I was going to use the word license, a bit of a difficult word to understand, but there's a lot of flexibility in part 2. So don't worry about it. So, yeah. And look, to remember that the part 2 topics are designed to be very broad, very accessible to everybody. Okay. So if you need clarification before you start your preparation time, make sure you ask the examiner. If the examiner says, I'd like you to talk about this, you say, well, excuse me, can I just ask you a question? If you do it immediately, then you don't lose any of your preparation time. If you start preparing it and then ask a question, then you lose some of your preparation time.
There you go. That's a good tip. Geetanjali asks about capital letters. So if the word that you need to write is England, should I have a capital E? Yes, you should. If the word is tomorrow, can I write it all in capital letters? You probably shouldn't. I mean, sorry, Graeme, what's the answer to this one?
Well, I was saying, are we looking at listening or reading or
listening and reading?
Listening and reading. Well, I mean, capitalization, lowercase, uppercase, is a grammar issue, and that's not being tested in the listening test. So it's not marked wrong if you write England with a small e. All right.
Yeah. I just think if it's England, should be a capital letter. Use a capital letter.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do that.
Yeah.
Yep. And if it's the words tomorrow, write it all lowercase. Cool. Okay, here's a good question from Heidi Flores, which is, in the reading test, does the answer need to be very specific? Let's say it's a short answer. Like, let's say there's a phrase that says stolen car report, but I just write report. Would my answer still be correct, or do I need that other information, the adjectives that tack onto that noun?
Ooh, well, I mean, you need to answer the question so that it fits. Are we looking at putting it in a sentence that's given, or I'm not sure what the question.
Let's say it's a let's say it's like a gap fill question.
Okay, if it's a gap fill question, then what you write, what you give as your answer must make sense, right, in that gap. So you mustn't repeat a word. So if stolen was already in there and you put stolen, stolen, then it would be wrong. So you need to make sure that you read whatever it is that you fill the gap with to make sure that it's grammatically correct and also that it's lexically correct as well. The vocabulary works.
Good one. Yep, I reckon that's correct. Yeah, you have to make sure you're not repeating words when you write them in, but also you need to be careful about adjectives, because if that adjectives gives it a bit more information about that word, really specifies it, then you should include it. I don't know, let's say it's red car, I don't know, it's a stupid one. Stolen car report's good. If you just write report, it's a bit ambiguous, but if you write a stolen car report, that's clear. That's probably the answer. So my answer would be to yes, include it, but only if it's not already included in that question bit. City asks, does it matter if we use US or UK spelling in writing?
No, it doesn't matter, but be consistent. Try, it doesn't, there aren't that many words it's actually going to affect, to be honest. Z and S, OUR or OR, there aren't that many variations, but choose one or the other if you know the difference. But even if you mix them up, I don't think it's a really big issue. Do
you? Just stick to one.
Yeah.
Just to be safe. Just going to do a little shout out to Mishka. Mishka says hello, Graeme, and hello, Jay.
Hey there, Mishka.
Okay. The other one, a question that on YouTube Live before for speaking was, do I need to speak with an American accent or a British accent?
Oh, I'm impressed that you can choose.
Same. That's like, exactly.
I mean, I'd speak in the way you normally speak. Speak with your accent. That would be good. Yep. Remember, accent is not an issue. I mean, everybody's got, listen to Jay. Listen to Jay's accent. He has an accent, doesn't he? So do I. I have an accent. Everybody has an accent. The only issue is if your accent makes it difficult to understand you for some reason or other. That's where it gets problematic. But accents are just wonderful. I mean, wouldn't it be awful if we all had the same accent as me?
Yeah, accents are wonderful. I like them. How do you... Okay, here's a good question. Ranjan, in writing, let's say I want to edit something I've written. I've written a paragraph, but then I've decided, oh God, I don't like that sentence. So what do I do? Am I allowed to scratch out a sentence, write it below, put an arrow in? Is that okay?
In writing, so paper-based writing,
paper-based writing, yeah.
I think what I would do is I'd just cross the whole thing out and write it again.
Yeah.
Right? Because as long as you cross stuff out, then the examiner knows what to read. So just make it very clear, I don't want you to read this, and write it again. I think that's probably the best way of doing it. Like, for example, if you want to, you can do your planning on your answer sheet if you're doing paper-based. Very, very few people actually do, but make sure that you cross it out before you hand your paper in.
Oh, really? Would they then assess your plan?
I mean, you just don't want them to read it, right? So,
yeah,
I mean, you just cross it out. But hardly anybody ever does it.
Good point. Good point. Okay, Sam, if the question in reading says you can answer this in no more than 2 words, and if I just write 1 word, will I lose a mark? No, it usually says you can, what specific instructions? Answer in no more than 2 words and or a number. So it means you can use 1 word, 2 words, 1 word and a number, 2 words and a number. So if it says no, so yes, Sam, you can just write 1 word, that's fine. Cool. All right. I'm exhausted. I was just making videos for the last...
I think meditation is in order, Jay.
2 hours. Oh, I'll tell you what's in order is like, I tell you what's really good, resting. Resting.
Yeah.
So nice.
I'm just having a look at Gurpreet's here. So he's got, in my last exam, I got the question tasked to that culture is the same across the world. Is it a positive trend or a negative trend? doesn't sound like a trend at all to me, but which structure in essay type it was. Although I used advantages, disadvantages, and got 7 in writing, still need your advice to handle these question types. So I hope everybody got that, because Gurpreet's not sharing it with anybody else but you and me.
Oh.
So is it a positive or negative trend? Well, you're going to answer the question, right? You're going to say, well, I think actually it's largely a positive trend, but of course there are some negatives. Let me explain why. So that's what I would do. There we go.
This is, I mean, here, when you get a question in writing, answer the question.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Can I be a bit controversial here? Because in the class I just did, whatever it's called, What the Week That Was, there is some advice going around, and I won't name names, that says that even if you're not asked your opinion, it's a good idea to put your opinion. So if it says discuss both views, it's a good idea to put your opinion as well. And I say what you just said, answer the question. Anything to add?
This is an interesting one. I actually spoke to a couple of guys from IDP about this, and they said, if you give your opinion, it doesn't matter. It's fine to give your opinion. So I hear you though. I see that what they're interested in though is a position, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question for you from me, Graeme, which is, what's your position? If they don't ask for an opinion, then what's the position? If you just
if it's discuss both views, right, which is the one where you're not actually, well, of course you're going to discuss both views, but it's your opinion anyway. It's your opinion of what other people think, right? But you just put it in a more impersonal way. You know, many people believe that there are da-da-da-da-da. But on the other hand, you know, there's a large number of whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
So you're just using language to say what you think other people think, which is basically probably what you think as well anyway.
Good one. And that's a position, and that could be included very clearly in your introduction, in your body paragraphs, and in your conclusion. The position's clear all the way through, even though you haven't expressed a personal opinion about it. Good.
And sorry, very, very briefly, I'm not sure why you'd waste time putting your opinion if you're not asked it. Use that time to develop your body paragraphs more fully, etc., etc.
Yep. Okay. I think we might be done. There's lots and lots of people on YouTube Live asking questions, but as I said before, please come across to e2language.com and sign up, and then you can actually interact with us in our live classes and even think about taking a speaking mock test or something like that. And the other thing I'll say about people on YouTube is not all of the most up-to-date methods lessons are on YouTube. All of them are on e2language.com. So you might be watching some older videos there, which might be problematic. Cool. Thanks, Gurpreet, for your question.
We've also got, haven't we? We've also got a new Power Pack promotional thingy, whatever. Did you know about that?
Yeah, I did see something about that. There is a new Power Package available. Check out our social media if you want to find out about discounts and things that we do. Follow us on Instagram or on YouTube. And
can I share my screen with it just to show people?
Please.
Okay. So here we go. This is it. All right. So it's on my desktop. Come on. There we go. There it is. And we can see that there. Power Package is back. All right. From now to the 1st of April. Now, there was a question that I was asked, Jay, about this is, okay, it's a 4-week intensive study plan. How long do I have access to all these resources?
6 months.
Hey, that's the answer I gave. I said, I have no idea, but it's probably 6 months. There we go. So that's for everybody to know. So thank you very much. Great. Cool.
All right, everybody, I'm going to go home and rest. And
thanks, everybody. That's great. Nice to have all those questions. Nice to see you again, Jay. I look forward to the release of the latest chat that we had on meditation and how to ace a 9 by being a good meditator or something, whatever it is.
Yep. Yep, me too. I can't wait to listen to that. It was a good conversation. Should be fun. So I'll certainly let everyone know when that's coming out. But cool. Have a good day.